Coming up on All About Android, it's me, Jason Howell, Florence Ion, and Ron Richards. We welcome David Ruddock from Android Police to talk a little bit about Google getting out of Stadia game production. Also, we have a lengthy discussion about Android Automotive, coming to Ford vehicles specifically. Wireless air charging is also coming someday down the line. At least Xiaomi and Motorola are working on it. Who is the Sony Xperia Pro actually for? Plus, we answer your email and a whole lot more next on All About Android.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Expressvpn. Stop handing over your personal data to big tech. Protect yourself with the VPN I trust to keep me safe online. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid. And by Udacity. Build your tech skills through industry-leading programs created and recognized by top companies worldwide with a nano degree from Udacity in as little as 12 weeks. Visit udacity.com/twit and use coupon code TWIT at checkout to get 50% off through May 30th, 2021. Hello and welcome to All About Android, episode 510, recorded on Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021, your weekly source for latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
And I'm Florence Ion, and I'm once again reminded we've done over 500 episodes.
Yeah, 510 to be exact.
510. That's a lot of episodes, so good for us, guys.
It's crazy. I know, it keeps going up. We should worry when the episode numbers start going down again. And suddenly we're back at 509 and then 508.
I mean, it could be some sort of countdown. It could be some sort of thing that we use to hype up the next, version of the show. So.
Right. Or the end of the current iteration of the show. That's what Steve Gibson is doing. I think from what I understand, he's counting down to episode 1000. And then who knows what happens with him on security now. We'll find out. But anyways, it's good to see y'all. And it's great to welcome our guest, David Ruddock, editor-in-chief of Android Police. How's it going, David?
Hey, it's going good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, always a pleasure to get you on the show. One of these days we'll be back in the studio and we can invite you in person to be on the show again, because it's even better having you in the studio. But Zoom with its pretend fake, or Skype with its pretend fake background stuff, that works too.
Yeah, I think I would love to get back in the studio with you guys.
Right on. Well, we brought you on actually for a very specific reason. So we are going to jump right into the news.
That's it. There's nothing to say. It's just Android news.
Yeah,
I think that was at a protest, I think.
Yes, it's like an ellipses. It's just 3 dots. That's all it was. So we thought of you, David, because yesterday, I think it was yesterday, when all the news was dropping about Stadia. And really, this could go in a million different directions. But for those who don't know, who aren't aware, just to recap, Google announced yesterday that it's going to be shuttering its in-house game development studio, which they first formed 1 year ago. It was called Stadia Games and Entertainment. They did all this hiring for it, brought in all these big names to essentially create exclusive first-party Stadia games to be there in the library in combination with all the other titles that everybody recognizes. And Google announced yesterday that, we're not going to do that anymore. And I feel like there's a lot to dive into here. At the same time, we saw on Twitter that you were going wild with this stuff, and we were just really entertained by your thoughts on this. So thought it was a perfect time to bring you on to talk a little bit about Stadia. And I'm just kind of curious, like right off the top, you've had a day to kind of think about this. What does this say about Stadia that they're getting rid of this? Because it's easy to go into the realm of, Google just likes to kill all of its things before it ever had a chance or whatever. Do you think that's what we're looking at here, or is this different?
I think with anything Google quote unquote kills, you have 2 sides of the story here. You have the consumer facing side, which is often that Google gets rid of something that people used. And then you have the internal side where oftentimes Google ends up taking pieces of that thing and applying them somewhere else where they make sense. You could look at Google Wave, for example, a really, really, really weird product that probably didn't make sense for the mass market, but that certain people used and loved, and that Google took some ideas from and incorporated into Google Inbox, which was then a thing that people really loved and used, and then incorporated those things from Inbox into Gmail. So Google has a way of kind of devouring itself and its projects like that. And I think that is unfortunately what's happening with Stadia here. It's unfortunate for consumers because it means that Stadia, as a subscription cloud streaming service, I agree with Sean Hollister at The Verge and what he said. The days are numbered now. This service won't live on indefinitely. So Google says it still invests in Stadia. There will still be third-party game releases. Other developers will continue to make games compatible with Stadia. They didn't say if they expected to reduce pace of adoption or if they expected to continue to meet their target of 400 games in 3 years or something like that. I forget what the exact time frame was, so don't quote me there. I'm quoting myself, I guess. But
it's
anyway,
done.
Yeah, it's done. I've said things online and they're having consequences. Right. So I think that really the thing that kind of hid the ball about this was the announcement that they were shutting down Stadia Games and Entertainment, Stadia, and that was their in-house game studio. Well, I mean, that is big news. I agree that it's important, but they I wouldn't say they hid the lead necessarily, but they waited a couple paragraphs to be like, and by the way, we're looking at Stadia's business model, and we might kind of take that in a different direction, maybe. Who knows? And they kind of left with that. They didn't get much more specific other than to say they wanted to share the Stadia platform with partners. So what that to me means, A, they're being intentionally vague about it. B, that it means whatever they're doing does not mean a positive change impact for people who subscribe to Stadia. They're saying the opposite. They're saying that other companies are now going to benefit from Stadia more than subscribers likely will. And to me, that's, I think everybody else saw it for this after a little while too. It's an admission that they want to take Stadia and turn it into a B2B or B2E like cloud gaming business, where Stadia, as a little company inside Google, sells this service, this ability to stream your games to game publishers and developers who can use Stadia's platform and their hardware resources, just as you would AWS, Amazon Web Services, to stream games to gamers, where Google is just the intermediary. It's really it's an ISP for video games, essentially. Not in a lot of senses, but in the sense that it's a service provider here. So I think that's where most people have decided this is where Stadia is headed. And I think the reasons for that, you've got a few good ones. One, it seemed inevitable. If you look at the streaming space, our senior editor, Ryan Haker, had a post about this today. If you look at the streaming space, things initially started as basically content clearinghouses like Netflix, which gobbled up all the rights to everything, gave you the right to play it back. But over time, Netflix understood these studios and these TV companies, they are starting to understand how to do what we do, which is stream video. And streaming video became so easy and so scalable as a service. These companies started clawing back the rights to their content because they're like, hey, why would I, put my show on Netflix if I'm CBS and I can charge people $10 a month to watch every Star Trek ever? So the industry has very provably moved in this direction in the last 5 or so years, especially. I think what Google is doing is foreshadowing that essentially a la carteization, to use a very poor term of art, of video game streaming, where publishers are not really interested in licensing their libraries out to these content clearinghouses where gamers can play all kinds of games. They're more interested in building up their own solution to stream those games and cut out the middleman, because nobody likes the licensee to be the big profiter on these pieces of IP. The publisher wants to profit the most. And so their motivation will be to start their own services. EA already has a beta for game streaming online, under their own branding. And we already know Xbox, Microsoft is gobbling up game developers. So it's beefing up its streaming library with exclusive titles. Sony, they're experimenting with streaming too. And I think it's inevitable. You will see more and more companies get involved with game streaming, less as a consumer service and more as something that they can, then sell to another company who holds the rights to a piece of IP and allows them to stream it. And I think that is a big nail in the coffin for Stadia as a consumer product, if that is where Google sees the world going.
That's interesting. It's almost like Stadia in that sense is the proof of concept, is the who knows if Google had the foresight to say, we're going to put out Stadia to show that it can be done, and then we're going to offer this service to everyone, and then we're going to retract on Stadia.
Think they did.
I don't think
they did. Otherwise, they wouldn't have started the game.
I think this is a complete restructuring of, if we look at sort of what's been going on inside Google, they've been cutting down, consolidating. We kind of saw this. We were talking about this just last week with Daydream and with their VR trajectory. It's just, Google does not want to keep throwing money at sort of like games and other. It really seems to me like this past year has made them and their investors just sort of go, we need to funnel the money where it makes sense, which is honestly kind of a crummy thing, because they've been playing up this Stadia like this is going to be it. We're going to figure it out for you. Like, we've got Google behind this. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't profitable enough in the short time it existed for them to, and who, is that Google's folly, or is that like the folly of the industry? I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, my take on it, I think it's a lot of all this all mixed in, right? I think Google is a technology company that like has excelled very well at infrastructure and setting up these applications and doing, for all intents and purposes, B2B with under the cover of a very large B2C company with the search engine. Right. But I think what they found was that the games industry is not fun. Right. Like David laid it all out. Like, you've got all these little studios that make deals with larger publishers who make deals with the platforms, and it's cutthroat, and the entire console market is losing to mobile. And so, so some are seeing that streaming could be the answer to this. It could be the future of it. But why, just because you're Google doesn't mean that you're going to succeed where Microsoft and Xbox and Sony and PlayStation haven't, to this point. Like, Steam is the biggest competitor is the biggest like success here. And to David's point, like, if they build out this infrastructure and now license it, that could be more guaranteed money than trying to cultivate a creative execution of making the next Cyberpunk or making the next Spider-Man or making the next, whatever the next hit game is.
Yeah. And I think you're right about that for sure. And I think that, again, the Netflix analogy, Netflix was able to see ahead and to invest truly crazy amounts of money in making their own content. People thought Netflix was insane for how much they invested in in-house production. But
yet
obviously
the reality shows are chef's kiss. Sorry.
And they've excelled. I don't think back catalog is the reason almost anybody subscribes to Netflix anymore. You subscribe for the original content, right? You're there for what Netflix makes. And that was not true 5 years ago. That was not true at all. So I think that Google tried to, at first, they tried model one, which was the Netflix model, where, okay, we're going to make the platform. And the way we make the platform sticky for customers is we make the content. And we say, hey, if you want the content, you've got to come to our platform. But clearly, Google's heart was just not in it to tough that out. And then they cut loose, they cut their losses. And I think that, they had apparently really unrealistic expectations about how game development pipelines work and how game development teams work. This is, if they were serious about this, they'd need to spend 10 years investing in a development house to really start pumping out amazing AAA content. It'd take them a decade. And their first big project would probably take 5 years. And Google showed nowhere near that level of commitment.
Oh, and you got to feel like I feel awful for the people that were brought into that team and promised, this really great kind of situation at Google's, next big thing. And only a year later, like, I wonder how deep they even got. Probably not very deep into something, but they probably had ambitions and dreams as far as how they were going to take it. Although we also know, from people who work inside Google in the midst of evolution and change like this, that it can be a real chore to work inside Google from just the sheer fact of the bureaucracy of working for a company like Google. So who knows? Maybe to some degree they were relieved, to be let go. But they're not being fired, from what I understand. They're being repositioned, which is what Google likes to do. They don't want to fire anybody, so they try and find someplace else in the company. I don't know what they're going to find if Google isn't making video games. They're probably not going to find a whole lot at the end of that rainbow.
Plus, people are still going to lose their jobs because not everybody wants to be in a new position, and not every, overall, it's just a really crummy thing. And I really appreciate, David, you bringing that Netflix analogy, because I think, that is the best analogy for what's going on here. There's just no other explanation for it. And I was thinking, at the beginning of our conversation, I was thinking to myself, okay, so Ouya couldn't do it for indie games. Google couldn't do it for AAA games. So it looks like the cloud gaming, I know this is all about Android, but, this is something we've been talking about a lot, just being able to hone in on a game and just start it up on your phone because it's, somewhere being broadcast to you from the cloud. I guess it really sounds like it's just going to be up to Sony, Microsoft, the big studios to let this happen.
I think so. Go for it, Dave.
I think that the other thing it speaks to is kind of a sad reality, and this is not about Android, it's just about the gaming industry in general. The sad reality that the most profitable portion of that industry is a very small number of publishing houses who make almost exclusively AAA or just below AAA content that is incredibly expensive to produce and incredibly difficult to produce. It's really hard to make these games. They're so complex. You look at Rockstar, and they're, working people across multiple countries, hundreds and hundreds of people, or thousands of people for Red Dead Redemption 2, across multiple continents to make this game come together. And being able to do that, making games is not just about manpower. It's about how you organize that manpower and work as, a group of teams. You can't just throw more resources at a programming issue, much like, gaming issues. So I think that Google probably came to the rather sad realization that to make money as a content publisher in video games, you either have to be really scrappy and independent, or you have to be ultra massive. There's not a lot of room in the middle.
So true. What does a move like this say about kind of the gaming industry at large, their appetite for streaming? I've played around with Stadia enough to feel comfortable that I felt like it worked pretty well. In the beginning, it was very rocky, but as I've checked in on it throughout the course of the next, the following year and a quarter, let's say, I've seen that it's improved, and I've actually quite enjoyed playing it. But I'm not testing out all of the other game streaming offerings out there enough to know how Stadia compared or stacked up to the other services to even know how much of an appetite just the general gaming consumer has for cloud gaming. What do you think about that?
I think that there is still a very big appetite for this, mostly because of the mobile angle. People want to play these games on different screens. That is a huge thing. It's very real. And like Ron alluded to, Steam's been very successful with this with Steam Link, which is a local solution, but it works really well because you're 10 feet away from your quote unquote cloud gaming. It's not cloud. It's you're just streaming from a box that's next to you, which is great if you're a PC gamer. That's an awesome technology. But I think overall, the momentum is there. I think Google's product actually is the most mature in the space right now. And I think most people agree with that in terms of not just it working reliably, but in terms of the simplicity of using it. It's not really complicated. It's fairly simple to start up. GeForce Now, they've got a lot of issue getting titles. They're a little more mature in terms of, I think, tech stack. They've been around longer because of Grid. If anybody remembers that from 9 years ago. Jeez. So they've been trying that for a while. I think that Microsoft, will be in the long game for streaming. I don't think they're going to give that up ever. I think they see that as the future, and I think they're right. I think that the biggest thing streaming can do is enable big video games to go down market, where you can say to a player hey, You can either pay $10 a month for this service and you can play this game, in this streamed format. Or maybe, for example, you want to own the game. Well, maybe you can buy it for $40 if you only want to stream. And you're just going to stream it to your phone. That's all you're going to do. But if you want to play this game on a video game console, you have to buy it somewhere else. Or if you want to stream it to your PC, maybe you have to pay to upgrade to do that. So I still think there is demand for this just because these publishers, they've been hungry for a while. Mobile gaming has done a decent job at growing revenue streams, but I don't think it's been the boom time for AAA game publishers that they really hoped it would be. EA's had some success. But I think that there's still a huge untapped space there of people who would want to play AAA games, either can't afford to or don't have a console or PC and don't want to buy one, but maybe have an iPad or maybe have, a phone, a large phone that they'd want to do that on, would be willing to buy a gamepad for. I think that anytime you can bring the price barrier down to these experiences, you're going to tap new segments of the market for sure.
And at the end of the day, we all got a Chromecast Ultra out of it, and
you sure did.
And a controller that we may or may not use.
You've got to imagine what it's like that when it came down, you've got this team working, trying to make it work, and they're like, "Oh, come on, really?" And it's so easy. I feel like this one is so easy to dismiss to Google being Google, but I agree with David. I don't think that's the case here at all. I think Flo, I think you're probably more right than people want to realize or admit, is that this might be Google being Google in terms of what Google is today. And tightening things up and going to where the actual money is and taking safe bets given the COVID world and all this stuff. Like if the world was different, maybe this sticks around. Who knows? So.
Well, and we should also reiterate, like Stadia isn't going anywhere in its current form yet. They haven't announced that like Stadia is done. Stadia isn't dead.
They're just not making original games, which
they're just not making original games, and they have announced these plans to kind of third party it a little bit more. The service. So
sorry, Jason, I didn't mean to interrupt, but when you think about it at a macro level, like the idea of Google making its own games on top of like Bing, it made sense for them to do something cloud servicey because they're in the cloud. They've got these algorithms. They've got this search engine. How could we index cloud gaming? Sure, that makes sense. And let's package it up with Stadia. It makes it look nice and sell it to people. But talking about them doing a actual in-house studio and thinking that you can just sort of like hire industry greats and that it will just come together. I think that is a little bit of that old Silicon Valley optimism that doesn't really work in a world that is financially challenged by a pandemic, by political unrest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and what occurs to me right now is, what if instead of hiring all those people and creating their own studio, they had just acquired a really great studio? Exactly. Then suddenly you have this runway, the shortened runway. Maybe that would have worked out a little bit better. But would that have really reached the ultimate end goal, which, like you said, David, and it really makes a lot of sense, Google making this more of a third-party kind of solution for studios to integrate and play with makes a whole lot more sense to me for what Google is as a company than Google creating games. Like it just kind of like, okay, I could see them doing that, but that's not where their heart is. This other servicey stuff, that's really where their heart is, and they can go far with that.
Selling cycles on a computer is Google's growth business, so it makes great sense.
Yeah, indeed. Awesome. So happy you came on, David. Thank you so much for hopping on with us for the first part of this show, David. Ruddock, of course, editor-in-chief at Android Police and writer of articles from time to time, and definitely the writer of the title of the latest article on Stadia, which was even Google doesn't want to make games for Stadia anymore. Have to give you props for that.
It was a little bit brutal. Thanks for having me.
Somebody had to say it.
Love it. Thank you, David. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right. Later.
Bye, David.
Awesome stuff. I'll be curious to see where Stadia goes from here.
Me too. Always good to see David, though. Always good to get his take on these things. So, but before we move on to the rest of the news, Burke, Let's take a break and thank our first sponsor, because this episode of All About Android is brought to you by Expressvpn. And do you know who's watching you go online? You might be looking behind your back or around you, but even when you use incognito mode on your browser, are you truly private in your searches? No one likes to be watched. Most people don't like to be watched. Big tech knows where you're going and where you've been, and it's none of their business. That's why I use ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN prevents big tech companies from seeing your IP address. It's time to put a layer of protection between your online activity and those who are looking to eavesdrop. You don't want your personal data to be exploited. Think about how much of your life is on the internet. Every site you visit, every video you watch, every message you send gets tracked and data mined. But when you run ExpressVPN on your device, the software hides your IP address, and that's something that can be used to personally identify you. So ExpressVPN makes your activity harder to trace and sell to advertisers. With their trusted server technology, they have an innovative approach to running VPN servers that ensures no data is ever written to a hard drive. ExpressVPN will never log traffic data, DNS queries, or anything that could be used to identify you. And ExpressVPN does all of this without slowing your connection. That's why it's rated the #1 VPN service by CNET and Wired. What I like most about ExpressVPN is how easy it is to use. Download the app on your phone, tablet, router, or computer, tap one button, and you're protected. And for so long, I was anti-VPN, not for any other reason other than convenience. It felt like it was another step I needed to take. It would slow things down. It would get in the way. But after trying ExpressVPN and seeing how fast it is, how seamless it works, now I know all my personal data is protected, and yours can be too by trying ExpressVPN. So stop handing over your personal data to big tech. Protect yourself with the VPN I trust to keep me safe online. Visit expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid. That's expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid to get 3 extra months free. Go to expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid right now to learn more and start protecting your online privacy. Thanks, ExpressVPN, for being so fast, awesome, and protecting us and our privacy. Thanks, ExpressVPN.
Thank you, ExpressVPN. You're awesome. Okay, we are sticking with the news. It's more news.
More news.
We should get the news to talk about.
We should get the news bumper again. There it is.
All right.
I appreciate the very subtle cue, Ron. Here's Android news.
Oh, now he gives us an intro speech. Okay.
That's what happens the second time around.
Yeah.
Second verse, not the same as the first. All right, Ron, you got it.
So some interesting news in the auto world. We were just talking about Google and all their deals and things like that they make and stuff, and B2B and providing services. And Ford Motor Company and Google announced that by 2023, Android Automotive will be Ford's infotainment system in all of its vehicles. This is huge if you're tracking the automotive world. Sync will use Google Maps, Android voice recognition, and enable third-party development. Also using Google Cloud for connected services. This does not mean that only Android devices can connect. And Android Automotive allows Android Auto and Apple CarPlay to interact. And some existing models might get an update to their systems too. So basically what this means is that the car's OS is going to be powered by Android Automotive, which is basically just an infotainment system that anybody can use that's being run by Android. If you plug in a iOS phone, CarPlay will work. If you plug in an Android phone, Android Auto will work. But if you don't have any phone, you don't plug anything in, you're using the car's system, you don't even know it's Android under the hood. So like that's an important distinction here. But this is huge, and it kind of ties into recently I got a car, which I haven't had for, what year is it? 21? The last time I had a car was 2007.
Wow.
And did you have to learn how to drive again?
No, because I had Zipcar. Remember, I used to drive to Petaluma when I was in. So
I'm just joking.
I stay busy. Haha, Jason. But when buying the car, actually leased it. I leased the car. When looking for a car, when shopping for a car, and I talked about this on the show. I wanted to use Android Auto. I wanted to find a car that was compatible with Android Auto. I had some other non-tech needs, i.e., like space for car seats and babies and lugging groceries, and could my wife drive it and all this fun stuff. And eventually, basically, we settled on a Subaru Forester, which those of you who are aware, Subaru has its own infotainment system, the Subaru Starlink system. But if I plug a USB cable in and plug my phone in, it loads up Android Auto, and I can use that in the dash. So I've been doing that, having a good time. I actually had a great Duncan Jaffrey from Osdroid when I was shopping for the car, sent me a whole bunch of information on Twitter, and I actually never replied. I should do that tonight, but that information was great, and it really helped me kind of in understanding it. But I will say, like, using Android Auto like in a dedicated every time I get in the car. Now I'm starting to feel some of the pain that is around Android Auto, right? That flow that I've heard you speak about, right? The wired aspect of it alone, like now I get that little box that can make it wireless, which I totally understand there. But there's also little nuances in, just like for me, it's mainly been to listen to podcasts and to use Google Maps. And I will say I've been happy with the assistant and with voice responding to messages.
Yeah.
Like it natively picked up WhatsApp. It read me the message. It said, "Do you want to respond?" I said, "Yes." I responded, and it sent it. It was accurate. It all worked, and that's great. But I think my biggest complaint about it is how much it just locks out your phone when in the car, because if I'm at a red light, it's actually faster for me to go to the Google Maps app and pull up where I'm going and get a sense of it than to do it on the dash and do all that stuff. It's actually more dangerous to try to type in an address on the head unit than it is to type it in on my phone.
They probably want you to use the voice, of course, so you can keep training that model. But I found that using the voice in the car, it's like when you turn down the music because you're looking for a parking spot. It's just that, like, cognitive ability, like you just want to take back as much as you can so that you can focus on driving.
Well, the most annoying thing to me about Google Maps or Android Auto is that I rarely, if ever, use the navigation mode. Right. And this is actually this is a pet peeve I've had with Google Maps, not just in Android Auto, but the Google Maps app, is that there should be a setting or a version or an aspect of Google Maps that you're telling it, I know this neighborhood. Right? Like this is where I live. I know these roads because, like, for example, I left my old apartment in Queens the other day, and I was driving back, and I was going to go stop at Shake Shack. So I had to find the nearest Shake Shack to get their new Korean fried chicken sandwich. And
as you do.
And so I was like, all right, well, let me use, Android Auto and Google Maps. I put in the address, and there's an annoying on-ramp to get onto the Long Island Expressway from where I live, where you have to, like, make a left and then bear right at the fork and then bear left at another fork and then stay, like, whatever. And Google Maps just and this is like in the span of maybe 200 feet, right? This is a short distance with a lot of, like, crisscross that me living there know exactly what to do. And I'm listening to the podcast, and Google Maps would say, now bear left. Now, and like it was just inundating me with the directions. Yes. And I'm like, I live here. I know it. I just need to know what exit to get off of. Right. Like, so I immediately turned it off, and I just used my phone to navigate. So, which I know isn't what you're supposed to do, but it actually worked against me. So, I don't know. So it's been a mixed bag. It's great for Pocket Casts. Let me tell you, I love listening to podcasts, and the interface is awesome, and that's all good on that end. But what this means to bring it back to the story, I'm not familiar enough with Android Automotive if it's all the same applications in Android Auto. Right. And so if my experience with Android Auto will be similar for someone in a Ford. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm not as versed on Android Automotive either. My understanding of it being that it's a platform that kind of drives the infotainment system and possibly more inside of the car. Like, I'm not sure that necessarily implies that you're going to get the total Android Auto experience. Right. I'm assuming it's customizable per manufacturer to have it look a certain way and everything. It's just it happens to be running on an Android base layer, as opposed to a different methodology. So, and maybe that inherently makes it more supportive of the Android platform to some degree. Although Google would probably want to be careful about that so that there isn't some sort of antitrust, thing that could go along with that. But I've not had direct experience with Android Automotive to really understand, like, okay, so it's Android underneath, but do you as a user even know that at all? Like, does it just look like every other infotainment system? It just happens to be driven by Android Automotive.
Yeah, are they going to skin it with the Ford Sync branding? Because Ford's really put a lot into that. Are they going to use stuff they've developed? Yeah, I mean, it could literally just be like it's running, instead of running Linux, now it's running Android Automotive, like that sort of thing. So, and the fact that you can still use Android Auto with it is somewhat moot if you are a true Android kind of person. But it was funny because I was actually deciding between a Ford or a Subaru. And essentially, it was the same. They both have their infotainment system, and you both launch Android Auto as an app, like when you plug in your phone. So, like in that regard, it was kind of same for me in terms of the choices. So.
Okay. So I'm looking whether this is helpful. I'm looking at the Google source.android.com about Android Automotive and Android Auto, and they kind of they specify on the page the nomenclature can be confusing. Android Auto. It's a lot of words here, but basically Android Auto is the platform that's running on the user's phone that projects out to Android Auto, that user experience to a compatible in-vehicle infotainment system. Android Automotive is the operating system and platform running directly on the in-vehicle hardware. So, so it's kind of both essentially, which that leads me to believe that Android Auto and Android Automotive are meant to play very nice together, and that would make total sense.
I think
Android I'm not
Auto
sure what that looks like.
Is the app-facing part, and then Android Automotive is the in-car system, akin to like what QNS used to be like back in the day, and all those other. Right. Under the hood OSs, so to speak.
Yes. So, anyways, and
they
I
had
think sorry.
So basically, the demo that they had showed us at Google I/O like a couple of years ago was you would get into a car and it would be like one of these fancy touchscreeny cars. Usually, the cars they were showing were like in the 100K levels, so not something immediately attainable. But the idea was nice, which was that the whole car would be running on the Android operating system. So everything from the HVAC to the door locks to the actual assistant that was, the chip was embedded inside the car to talk to you through the speakers kind of thing. Android Auto is just the consumer phone-facing version of it. But as we're talking about all this, I'm also thinking about the version of Android Auto that was supposed to be like the driving mode in Google Maps, so that the minute you plug in your phone, you would get this like one easy scroll through screen, which still has not come to fruition.
Yeah, one of those.
So this is starting to get a little dicey in terms of, just because we were just talking about Stadia and what was happening with that, and now we're talking about all these different like auto silos.
Yeah.
I
just included a link in the doc underneath the Ford story to a Verge story covering this news, and they have a screenshot from I think CES where there were, or maybe it was Google I/O, I'm not really quite sure, but of like an Android Automotive happening inside of a car. And I'm not a car guy, so I can't even identify what car vehicle it is. But it has
that is a Mustang. That is a Mustang, my friend. Because you can see on the steering wheel the classic Ford Mustang horse. And that is, I mean, I know that this sort of interface, Tesla really kind of brought it to the forefront, but that is an intense screen.
Looks chunky and clunky to me.
You know what this actually might be? Is that the Mustang,
the new Ford
truck?
Mustang, the new
Have you seen
Eco
the Shelby?
One?
No. They recently it's funny because my dad's a car guy. He owns a Shelby, like a 66. But Ford recently rolled out the new version of the Mustang Shelby, and it's a pickup truck. And like everybody's flipping out over it because it's like also this horrible looking.
It's very spacious. I watched some reviews on it. It was very spacious. Supposedly a new kind of era for Mustang. But that
the
said,
Shelby F-150. Yeah, that's what it is.
I'm putting one more link. Find it, Burke, while Flo talks.
This isn't the first time that Ford is kind of trying to be the ones to carry the torch for whatever tech inside the car. I mean, remember they had the big thing with Microsoft Sync, little less than 10 years ago, I think is when the program officially ended, but people are still driving cars with Microsoft Sync in their Ford Fusions. And that was sort of like the beginning stages of you can talk to your car to do things for you. So not the first time for Ford to try something on in a digital way.
Sure.
Okay, so Burke, last time. So, okay, scroll down and keep scrolling until you start to see interface stuff. You'll see it probably about a third to halfway through the article. Yep, there you go. Right after this picture, you start to see some interface stuff. Sorry, audio listeners. But basically, this is The Verge's article on the Polestar car, which was one of the earlier ones that had Android Automotive running on the inside. So this might give you a sense. I'm not sure that the Ford interface is going to look quite like this exactly, but it definitely has more of like an Android googly approach to it, right? Like the notifications up in the top are very similar to what you find on a phone, along with the clock. And yeah, definitely has more of that like Android design paradigm to it. So yeah, I'll be really curious to see what Ford does with that.
You guys know how I feel about this. No touch screens in the car. Not like this. This is bad move for the auto industry. I know Tesla's been doing it, and I'm going to have Tesla drivers out there being like, what are you talking about? It's great. I love my iPad.
Progress.
But that is not the way that our brains are supposed to. It's not what our brain should be doing while we're operating a moving vehicle. I wholeheartedly feel that. I have interviewed experts who have said that it is dangerous to drive without tangible buttons in the car because your eyes are going to search for that interface instead of looking at the road. And it's just, until we have fully autonomous self-driving cars, there should not be touchscreens in the car. That is my stance. And I
do think it's really interesting because there's the argument to be made that it's progress and the technology can do it, so we should do it and that sort of thing. And but like from a UI standpoint, because we were car shopping, even subtle changes and advancements are not always welcome. So like we were looking at the Ford and we're looking at Subaru, and I'll tell you what it came down to. It literally came down to two things. That were mainly driven by my wife, which is one, the Subaru back doors open out 90 degrees. And think about that. Like most cars open like maybe 60 at best or whatever, but like loading kids into a car seat, extra, like it both blew us away. And we're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Oh, for sure.
But then number two was the fact that the Ford's gear shift is a dial. They've switched from a stick to a little dial in the dash where you go drive, park, drive, whatever. And she was like, nope, I want a stick. Like, she's like, I need that tactile, like I'm putting it into drive. And I get there will be a whole generation that will be raised on no gear shift whatsoever. It'll just be a button. Like there's no reason why it needs to be that. But like those of us who've been driving for, I've been driving for almost 30 years now. Like I still have muscle memory of going to the gear shift behind the steering wheel of my first station wagon that I had in the 90s, right? So it's like it's really, really interesting. I haven't been driving 30 years. I've been driving almost 30 years. Anyway, that's crazy.
I've been driving almost 20 years. I've been driving 17 years. Like, just think about that.
But driving is something that is so, it becomes so instinctual, and altering that instinct or fighting that muscle memory could lead to injury. And so, like, you got to, I mean, I don't know if I'm as anti it as you are, Flo, because I'm so pro technology, but like also acknowledging the fact that you could really crash pretty badly if you get distracted.
Well, just from the analogy that you were giving about how it's easier to just go into navigation mode on the phone, I think that's why for me, there's no fluidity there. And I don't have this in my car right now. I have Android Auto on the phone in my car, but now I just put the music on. I just put it in the little pop socket holder that I have on my air conditioning vent. Actually, I don't drive anywhere anyway. So, I really haven't driven in a year. But minimizing distractions.
I mean, I can say from my perspective, one of our close friends who is kind of part of our pod. Okay, this is probably too much information. I think I've mentioned on the show before, but we trade vehicles, right? Like he has a trailer, and so when we want to go camping, we borrow his trailer, hook it up to the Sequoia. When he wants to go camping, he borrows our Sequoia to take his trailer, and then he gives us his Tesla Model X to drive while they're gone. And so there have been a few times where this has been like a couple of weeks, and we're just driving around this Tesla, which is pretty awesome. Like we make out on both sides of that deal, let me tell you. And I think in the beginning, the screen was really like I was kind of afraid to interact with it just because it was so different. But definitely there's that comfort level that sets in the more you do it, as with anything. And that's probably very, very obvious. But there are certain things that I just do not care for on a screen. I want that tactile. So I'm kind of a mixture of both. It's like I appreciate having the large screen there, but there are just certain things that I really want that tactile, not flat screen that has no differentiation between buttons or whatever, because I don't want to have to look at it when I'm driving. So kind of right there in the middle.
Should we shift gears to something else kind of tactile-ish, which is, wireless charging? Not exactly tactile-ish because it's wireless charging, but you do have to hold something to.
Sure.
Anyway.
Yes, you got it. Just take it and run.
So Motorola and Xiaomi, they are doing their best to try and make wireless charging over the air happen. So Xiaomi debuted its remote charging technology on Twitter last week. It's called Mi Air Charge. Now it can wirelessly charge multiple devices simultaneously, which is super neat. And of course, they have to make the slogan that there are no strings attached. Now, the wireless charging delivers 5 watts to a single device in a distance of about 6 feet away. Now, this is just a tech demo at the moment, but, something new, something different to sort of talk about. Motorola is also following suit by debuting their no-contact charging system. They shared a video on the Chinese social media site Weibo, which shows the Motorola One Hyper remote charging station prototype. It shows 2 smartphones charging from 2 to 3 feet away, and it demos how the charge stops when a hand is moved in front of the charging station. Likely a health protection mechanism of some sort, but also kind of shows how this technology works. I mean, there's an invisible wave in the air, so don't get between it, and don't go through the force field and interrupt it. You need to just let it do its thing.
Let it go. Let it go.
In the air.
This is neat, but there is that kind of like health aspect to it. Like and I realize I don't understand that aspect of the technology very well at all. I appreciate that Motorola is building into their prototype some sort of a fault that it will stop doing its thing if it notices that you, a human, are standing in between this beam of whatever to charge the phone. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, oh, but it's not high power enough, blah, blah, blah. But that's still going to turn a lot of people off. They're going to be worried about that. But interesting. Like I actually thought this would be a long ways away, but it seems like, both Motorola and Xiaomi are hot on the trail of figuring this out. I don't know what that means as far as when we would actually see this technology, but I'm very intrigued by it.
I could see Xiaomi bringing this to like one of its flagship devices overseas. I don't see us getting anything over here anytime soon. And I feel like Motorola is doing this because it's good PR. I don't know that they're going to be ones. They could probably put out a phone someday, but just with the track record they've had lately, I do not see them as trendsetters. I'm sorry, Motorola.
But they do have kind of a reputation around battery with their phones. A lot of their phones having like 5,000 milliamp hour batteries on the inside. So for people, at least here in the States, who are looking for Android devices that carry a lot of battery charge, Motorola is, one of those names that I think probably comes up in that discussion more than others. So maybe that's part of it, It's
This would have been a great technology for the car.
Yeah, right. And actually,
just put your phone in the cup holder, and it's like within vicinity. And as it's there in the cup holder, it's just like beaming energy back to your phone. Right. I don't know. I just like.
But you're also in an enclosed space with that energy beaming all around you. Is that okay? I don't know. Someone's going to write in and tell me why I'm right or wrong. Yeah, exactly. AAA at twit.tv. Let us know why we're right or wrong. As you usually do. We appreciate it. All right, let's take a moment to thank the sponsor, and then we will get into a little bit of hardware news, one hardware piece of news, and then a couple of apps, and so on. But first, want to thank Udacity for sponsoring this episode of All About Android. You know, there are a ton of tech jobs out there. Maybe you're thinking about applying for them, but you aren't quite sure if you qualify enough to apply. You don't want to have to, waste your time trying to figure out all the many ways that you can, find that education, waste your money on a bad program, that sort of stuff. Udacity is actually the world's fastest, most efficient way to master those skills, specifically the skills that tech companies really want. And you want to look at the nano degrees that Udacity offers. Udacity's nano degree program is a very unique online educational offering designed to bridge the gap between learning and your career goals. You can learn a suite of employable skills, and they actually partner with industry leaders and experts who really understand all of the in-demand skills that are applicable to the job market that you would be entering. So you enroll as a student, you pick a specific course offering, and you're going to be prompted to view the online course, as well as complete a series of projects and support courses designed to help you develop job relevant skills. So it's not just watch this video and then, hey, you're qualified. There's work involved that you have to, that makes it a real kind of curriculum for learning what you're learning. Udacity helps you build a profile on GitHub and LinkedIn, and you can actually show that to prospective employers. That's going to get you even further. You can learn to network, get noticed, and then of course, hopefully land the job that you want. Services related to the nano degree program may include classroom mentorship, moderated forums, project reviews for personalized experience. Really, that's super important and key to the nano degree, is that it's very personalized. Build skills through industry-leading programs that are built and recognized by top companies worldwide: IBM, Microsoft, Google, AWS. People from all over the world are using Udacity right now. More than 13 million are registered users in over 160 countries, and more than 1.3 million projects completed and passed. And there have been 150,000 nano degree certificates earned as well. So it's successful, it's working, and it can work for you too. They have some amazing programs for you to choose from that really, if there's a certain tech niche that you're looking for, you can find it. AI, cloud computing, data science, autonomous systems programming, development and product management, digital marketing, so many different roles. You can just kind of take a look and see, or maybe you have an idea already and you can look for exactly what you need to find the courses for. You're going to find them there. Improve your earning potential. You can take charge of your career with Udacity. You'll get real employable skills through project-based active learning that covers cutting-edge technology. And projects are actually reviewed by qualified professionals as well. You're going to have a real human, not just an algorithm, that's going to help. And you get personalized code reviews as well. And you get access to all those qualified mentors and everything that it offers 24/7. And actually, you don't even have to pay to check out some of what Udacity has to offer. They offer free courses as well as offer flexible payment options, so you can learn at your own pace, at your own schedule. You've really got a whole lot of options. Plenty of testimonials that you can find online, but take Francisco Gutierrez. He wanted a better life, but he knew that a 4-year degree was just going to be too expensive for him. Programming classes at a community college that he took never actually translated into job-ready skills, so he participated in the Grow with Google Udacity Challenge. He was awarded a full scholarship for the mobile web specialist nano degree. Not a bad start. The nano degree actually took him step by step. He received an internship from Microsoft, who offered him a full-time role as a software engineer. at the end of that rainbow. So this was all possible because of Udacity. Technology is disrupting enterprises as well across every industry. So you can check out Udacity for Enterprise and upskill your entire workforce. So get the education that broadens your horizons. Visit udacity.com/twit today. You'll get 50% off through May 30th, 2021. And if you want to redeem this offer, you just have to make sure and use the coupon code TWIT. And that discount will be applied at checkout. That's udacity.com/twit. And don't forget the coupon code TWIT. We thank Udacity for their support of All About Android. It's great having you on board. All right. I promised you hardware. It's time to deliver. My voice is disappearing suddenly. Let's see here. Okay.
All that Udacity.
All that Udacity. That's right. all those allergies. My allergies are going nuts the past couple of weeks, like crazy. Sony has a new flagship phone, and we'll just start with the price: $2,500. $2,500 to get this Sony phone. But and it's the Sony Xperia Pro. Emphasis on Pro for $2,500. This is not a phone that is made with consumers in mind. This is definitely more directed at video professionals. Sony is, of course, a very dominant brand in audio and video production. This is really aimed at video professionals. And what differentiates it from the Xperia 1 Mark II from last year? It's actually very similar to that phone. But this time around, you get 5G connectivity, which everybody's doing 5G, but they target that as like, it's a video production device, and you can upload immediately, to wherever you distribute your content or whatever the case may be. But the real kind of differentiator here is that it has an HDMI input. And that's there to allow this to be an external camera monitor, which at first I balked at it, and then I was like, and then I immediately thought of like what I would do with that. And I was like, okay, actually that's pretty cool. So you can use it as an external monitor, right? If you happen to be on the field, you've got this small, I can't remember how large the screen is, close to 7-inch screen that can be your external camera video monitor. And like, just as one example, if you compared it to there's the Red 7-inch LCD external display. Now it's Red. Red's a pricey brand. $2,750 for that. Just for a dumb display that's 7 inches. They probably wouldn't call it dumb, but I mean dumb by comparison to a full featured smartphone, right? So for $2,500, you get that external display, you get the mobile 5G capability to upload the media content that you shoot on the phone or the connected camera or whatever, plus all the other stuff that a phone does. When you put it that way, it's kind of like, oh, okay. As long as you're looking at it that way, then I suppose $2,500 makes more sense. What do you guys think?
Does it though? Does it make more sense?
But it does for the right buyer. It does for like a video professional that was going to drop $2,750 on just an LCD display, and you can get this instead. It does all those other things. Sure, why not?
Sure, in that context, possibly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I want to talk to somebody who actually uses this in the field. I want to know, is there somebody on a TV show somewhere, or maybe like some movie being filmed in Iceland or something? Like, give me some interesting backstory to this device. Don't just throw it at me.
Similar to our call for rugged phones, which we're going to get to later in the show. This is a call to video professionals. If you would be considering, how can I talk? If you were considering the Red LCD external display, would this phone be a better option for you, or is this the kind of thing that you need? Very curious with the use cases and how many people actually fulfill this use case.
Right. I mean, it might not. Oh, sorry. Go.
I was gonna say, even video professionals, that's still 25. I mean, like, my cousin's a wedding videographer, and this seems like the kind of thing that would be good with it, but that's still a lot of investment.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a lot of weddings.
Yes.
No question. Like I'm curious. I'm sure there are plenty of external displays that don't cost $2,500 or $2,750. But what is the level of quality that you get out of those displays? Like again, like I'm not a professional videographer, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask this. But making a direct comparison between what those displays offer and let's say what the red 7-inch LCD display for $2,750, what that one offers, and then you take that and compare it against what you get out of the Sony, from a clarity standpoint and all of the other added features. Like, I mean, if the prices are similar, I have to imagine this is probably a pretty good deal as long as the quality is there. Sony doesn't make bad phones. They make phones that I don't care for from a UI standpoint, let's say, and some of their hardware choices, I suppose. But it's not like they're turning out junk hardware. They make pretty quality phones. So Sony, I could see them doing this right. For God's
sake.
Yeah.
Hardware is never the issue, Jason. It was never the hardware.
It's the software.
Yes. Well, also in the very beginning, I mean, Sony just wasn't sold anywhere as a phone here in the US at least. So that's why they never. But this is just an interesting way, I guess. They're still trying to get some use out of these things. So that's good for them, I guess.
Well, see, and I'm happy you did this. Cousin of Ja posted in the chat room a tweet from Alex Lindsay, who was actually on MacBreak Weekly earlier today. And he says on Twitter, as a dyed-in-the-wool iPhone user, the new Sony Xperia Pro is the most exciting phone I've seen in years. Wow. If it can do what it says and what I think it can do, it's a no-brainer purchase for me, especially if it can make the HDMI look like the default camera to TikTok or Instagram. So, and that right there, that's that kind of opens up my awareness around kind of what kind of creator this might be perfect for too. If it, because I mean, tagging on to that tweet is iJustine. She was on Twitter a few weeks back, but she's all over YouTube. She says she's super excited to try this phone. So you've got like the hardcore creators who are doing tons of video work looking at this and going, okay, so it's not an Android phone. I mean, it is an Android phone, but it's an Android phone that does this very specific thing that is really useful to me. Heck yeah, I'd spend that. So I'm curious. Like, yeah.
I mean, you have to assume that the people at Sony and all the other manufacturers who make these weird edge case phones have justified the business. Like there's got to be an audience for it because they don't make something just because we think some people might want this. Like they're going to do research into it. They're going to determine how big the market size is. So maybe, so more power to them. So.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. All those people that say we don't talk enough about Sony phones. There you go. Take that. All right. Yes. And we've got a few app stories to talk about. Let's do it.
And now we can talk about gambling. Everyone's favorite subject. Now, gambling apps, they are coming to the Play Store in more countries, including the US. So I can't even think of like a joke related to this, because if you do have a gambling addiction, I'd like to point you to the hotline for Gambling Addicts Anonymous, because gambling is a serious issue.
It absolutely
but
can
I digress.
be.
Okay. Previously, gambling apps were only allowed in Brazil, France, Ireland, and the United Kingdom. But now you can gamble in 15 other countries. Throw your money away. Give it in. Everybody knows that this is a fun way to play cards. Now, many users were sideloading apps before this happened, which, yes, I mean, if you're going to gamble, you're going to gamble. Now, these new rules will apply March 1st for the gambling apps. Gambling, it's coming to Android.
It's in there.
I was going to originally like try and do something a little more serious, but then when we finally got to the story, I'm like, I'm not sure. Like, listen, I love Las Vegas. I miss it a lot right now. I haven't been in a year, which is honestly, this is the longest I've been away from Vegas in the last 10 years, I would say. That being said, there's no way I would throw my money away digitally because that's not fun. The whole point of throwing your money away in Vegas at a slot machine is you're throwing your money away at a physical slot machine, and there's somebody bringing you drinks, and there's lots of people watching. Like, that is the payoff to gambling in person. You don't get that payoff when you're doing it online. Okay? You just lose your money. So just want to put that out into the ether.
I mean, there's one statement in the world that is just like, because these can be really good money makers. Like the potential, the profit potential for Google and this sort of thing. Like, clearly it's baked into it, and it's tough because it's a fine line, because gambling is this, I don't mean sin in the religious way, but it's like, in drinking, smoking, gambling, like that sort of side of things. It's a sinful product. Yeah, and a lot of people can get in trouble if they have gambling addictions. But but what if I'm the person who likes to casually play blackjack, or casually, who wants to do some sort of gambling thing and can control it? Why can't I? So I see it both ways. I'm not going to use this. I am not a fan of the Vegas casinos. I'm not a fan of losing money, so I avoid this. But it's strange.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
But you know what? I got to tell you guys, this is not good for me, because, my favorite apps are blackjack apps and those Vegas slot machine apps. So
really?
How is this
like years of doing the shows tonight, finding this out, doing the shows with you for years, we find out that your favorite apps are blackjack and slot machine apps? Really?
I've lost so many of my Vegas points over the years because I'm like, I'll play this, and they give you points for scoring well, and then you could use them in Vegas. Like, you can go get gift certificates and $5 off here, or a free ice cream here. So I really got into it.
This is more enlightening than the Kardashian and Housewives nonsense that you watch. Whatever. This is fascinating. I had this is like Florence revelations, everyone.
I'm telling you guys, once my husband croaks, I'm going to probably move to Vegas. It's just probably what's going to happen. So.
Oh, wow.
Gosh. It's like we don't even know you.
Didn't see that coming at all.
Very loudly, but this is a joke in my friends group that So now I'm bringing it here to the podcast. Now you all know this. So
well, we appreciate your vulnerability and bringing this to the podcast.
So this news is not good for me. I will not be downloading any gambling apps, because
that's what I was going to say.
Last thing I need.
That's what I was going to say. You've got the games that you can just play for the fun of it, and that there's no money tied up. Just do yourself a favor and never download one of the ones where you actually win or lose money, and then you're golden. You're solid.
Well, what if it's Saturday and I have a blackjack app?
Oh my gosh!
Nope. You open that door.
All right.
That door. It's hard to close it again.
This is the point I'm trying to bring to this news story. So.
Well, we appreciate that you have brought this.
On the topic of
speaking of gambling.
Speaking of gambling, and the topic of losing or gaining money, unless you've been living under a rock or disconnected from all news-related things, you might not be aware of the fact that there's been some hubbub on the stock market, specifically around GameStop and AMC stock, and folks on Reddit deciding to screw up some hedge fund short sales and things like that. So that's not what this story is about. Rather, investment app Robinhood kind of got pulled into the fray, because once all that madness really kicked in, Robin chose to block any purchases of GameStop or AMC or other related stocks, which pretty much, a lot of those folks on Reddit were using Robinhood to make investments easy, and they did not like this. So a lot of those users went to the Play Store and left 1-star reviews for the app. So many so that it could be considered review bombing. And Robinhood's average app in the Google Play Store dipped from 4 stars to 1 star after over 100,000 1-star reviews flooded in. Needless to say, Google was quickly alerted to this and stepped in and removed those negative reviews and thus restored Robinhood back to its 4-star app status. And this is all because Google said that it has systems to handle this sort of thing with review bombing. And it's important to know that developers cannot remove reviews themselves. This is all done by Google. But honestly, like, I get that they were mad, but like, that seems valid to leave a bad review. Right? Like having legions of people leave bad reviews to get back at an app for doing something that some of them don't like. But like, if I was using it and they did it, I would be somewhat upset. So, yeah,
I would agree. I would be upset too. Maybe it's the coordinated aspect of it. All of them hitting at once makes it suddenly become less of like, oh, this person's upset, and more like it's a coordinated attempt to drop down to 1 star. Which, Burke, I don't know. Do you have the breaking news bumper handy? If you do, now would be the time to play it. We rarely do this these days, and we need opportunities too.
It's a good moment.
Let's go ahead and play some breaking news. If not Hiroshi.
That's Hiroshi.
Although, hi
It's
Hiroshi,
breaking-
how's it going?
I'm Hiroshi
This
Lockheimer,
news-
and I've got breaking news.
Okay, that works. That's good enough. Thank you. This just in: Robinhood on the Play Store back down to 1 star. So Google may have corrected it, but not for long.
With more reviews than like, so when before the bombing started, they were at about 180,000 reviews. At about 280,000, Google removed them. Now it's back up to 314,000. So I will say that this sort of swarm mentality, it's more than likely that not 200,000 or 150,000 people are using the app and giving it a bad review. This could be
suddenly getting in there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Reddit. So yeah.
Is a person on the Play Store able to leave a review if they've never installed or downloaded the app? Like, I couldn't go on an app I've never installed.
Let's find out. I've never installed Robinhood. Let me see if I can give them a 5. Robinhood, investing, no fees. Here it goes. All right, I've never installed it. I cannot review it.
You cannot.
So you do need to
install
it. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Well, at least there's that.
Okay. So wait. That brings then a different. Listen, I don't think that they should have done this, because then you are saying that if you can just so go easily and do this for a big app like Robinhood, why are you not doing this for all the indie game or indie apps that are getting bombarded with bad reviews because the app is run by one guy in his basement who just doesn't have time to fix the little bug that's in this note-taking app that you use? You know what I mean? Like, you're setting a precedent here that it's just easy to go in and edit the reviews. So what is the legitimacy of the reviews then?
The breaking news isn't as effective after the news has been broken.
But it's nice to have it.
Yes.
Yes. It's nice to have returned the dancing nougat.
Yep.
All right, there we go. I'm happy we got there. Up next, a few of your emails. And those emails come into AAA@twit.tv, 347-SHOW-AAA. If you ever want to leave us a voicemail, you never do. Ron, you got the first one.
Yes. You might remember 2 weeks ago, we were talking about rugged phones. These phones that are made to be used out in extreme conditions. And we put out a call for people to let us know about their rugged phones. Joe wrote in this week. Thanks, Joe, for writing in. And says, I do HVAC work at a lot of schools, and I recently ran into a custodian that does all the outdoor work at the local school district who has a rugged phone. It is an Android, but it is a rugged phone. I was told when he bought it a few years ago, the phone cost more than $1,000. He claimed he had driven over it with his truck and dropped it from the 3rd floor. If all of this is true, the phone has held up extremely well. I work both service and construction, and this is the first rugged phone I've seen. I currently use the Pixel 3 with a thin case, and so far so good. And he did send in a photo of said rugged phone, which appears to be a Sonum. I don't know which model it is, but there's the Sonum. I do like the Mr. Peanut background that the guy has on his phone. And here's my question about the rugged phones, and to all you rugged phone users. This is not the first email that we've gotten that has described the phone being proven to be rugged by being driven over by cars and trucks. And I'm wondering if this is something that they do because they have a rugged phone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I thought the same thing, Ron. I was like, okay, wait a minute. There's a theme here. When you have a rugged phone, really bad, like it's a chicken and egg scenario, actually. Is it that you have a rugged phone because bad things happen to you? Or when you have a rugged phone, then you make bad things happen?
Exactly. That's
right.
Hey, my phone can do this. So let's see what happens when I throw it off the third story of a building.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy is what it is.
Yeah. But very cool. Thank you, Joe, for writing in. So
love it. All right, Flo, you got the next one.
All right. So this one comes in from Jeff, and Jeff writes, I just received my new Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra and transferred data from my old Samsung phone to my new phone using Smart Switch. For some of my games, the data representing the level of the game that I've achieved did not transfer over, meaning that I would have to start the game over at the first level. These are games that do not have a feature to create an online profile or to log on through Google or Facebook. In one case, the game developer responded to my email and did something that allowed me to restore my level. By the way, that was Brick's Ball Crusher, a game Jason featured in the now defunct Arena. Others have not responded to my email inquiry. Is there any way for me to make sure that the game levels transfer when I'm setting up a new phone? It seems to me that the data must be stored somewhere, but I can't figure out where. Jeff, thanks for writing in. Now, you could try this and see if it works. But I'm going to tell you that I'm feeling not so optimistic, and I'll tell you why at the end of this tip. So first, go and download Helium. It's in the Play Store. And you can run Helium on your old phone, select the games that you wish to back up, and then save them to an SD card, or if you pay for the app, you can save it to the cloud. You might actually find that version easier. Then run Helium on a new phone with the apps already installed and restore from those backups. There are no guarantees that this works, but it has worked for some people, and it might work for you. What I'm thinking, this is completely my anecdotal, based on experience piece of advice, which is that sometimes the way that these games are coded, the save will be locally stored. So that's why it has to be loaded in this way with an app like Helium. So that might fix it. But yeah, try this, see if this Helium methodology works. And if it doesn't work for you, you might be out of luck. And I'm really sorry. I know what it's like to invest your time in a game. I know what it's like to invest your time in a person and have that relationship turn out to be just a total and complete waste of your time and your life. I'm sorry.
This is so the same thing.
It is the same thing. Apples to apples. Come on.
So exactly the same. Yeah, I mean, the Helium method might work. I mean, the reality is all developers seem to do this a little differently. Some of them hop onto Google's cloud save, technology. Some of them create their own cloud save thing. Some of them don't do that at all, and it's stored on device in an easy to backup way as long as you use an app like Helium. Some of them store it on the device in a not so easy to use way. So I guess just be sure that all of the games that you care about, you are logged into a form of cloud save if they exist. So that might involve opening up those games and checking, and then making sure that they sync. And on the ones that don't, try Helium and see. And outside of that, I mean, if you had a rooted device, you could use Titanium backup, but you probably don't have a rooted device, I'm guessing. And you can't root your device and keep everything on there. When you root a device, it wipes it out clean. So there's not a whole lot you can do there. So yeah, check that out, Jeff. All right, and now it is time for the email of the week. See, I like to say it before the horns. I know we all do this differently. Email of the week. Now I felt like I had to say it afterwards because you did it without me saying it. Howard Harris wrote in actually, it's in the past, and said, I was riding my motorcycle on the highway. Let's say I was doing 65 miles per hour when I hit a crater. With dread in my heart, I watched as my phone flew out of its holder and seemingly in slow motion flew over my head. I really am picturing this in slow motion. Mm-hmm. I watched in my rear view mirrors as it bounced multiple times on the highway, some of which reached heights of at least 6 feet. But I saw it go towards the shoulder. I circled around and could not find the phone. I had my son log into the Android Find My Phone as me and returned to where I thought it was. He activated the ringer and I found it. The case was gone. There was a minor scratch on the bottom right corner. The glass was pristine and it was still on. The new drop test. Drop it out of your window while driving on the highway and see if your phone holds up.
Okay. TWiT and All About Android hosts do not endorse that you throw your phone out of the window just to see how it holds up.
However, no, but if it happens by accident, please write with that amount of detail and we'll totally read it on the show.
Yeah.
I have something to say. I have actually dropped my motorcycle. My phone I've dropped out of my pocket and I run over it on my motorcycle, and it didn't survive.
It didn't survive. Wow. What phone was it?
Galaxy S3, I think. It was a long time ago. I've learned since not to do that.
Yeah, you
Those
learned
phones
not
were
to.
Super plastic. They had a lot of plastic on them, which definitely would not survive
that
the
drop.
Crushing.
Yeah, it didn't help that it had no case on it either.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask. Okay, there you go. All right, that'll do it too. So no driving with phones in your back pocket while you're on your motorcycle, and no stomping on indestructible phones with motorcycle boots either.
Now wait a second. No, I don't know about that.
Okay, well, you did that once, and you crushed the phone, which was actually very heroic of you, I thought. By the way, Howard did specify Pixel 4a 5G with a Tudia dual shield. Tudia or Tudia?
Tudia is how it's spelled.
Yeah, dual shield, which I imagine is the case. I'm trying to look it up and see. Tudia dual shield. Okay, it's just heavy duty protection, it says on Amazon. It doesn't look particularly heavy duty, but yeah, it looks like any other case, but it apparently did the job. And in fact, he said, by the way, the first thing I did when I got home was order the same case for the phone, which I guess that makes sense. If it protected your phone and all of that, in that situation, then you might as well get it again because it did its job. Thank you for emailing Howard and being our email of the week. I should also specify AAA@twit.tv is the email, of course. 347-SHOW-AAA is the voicemail. I always say but you won't, because I'm implying that we never get voicemail. We actually do get voicemail. The problem is we get voicemail that's really long, and we can't play really long voicemail. So if you're going to leave a voicemail, 30 seconds, minute tops, but time yourself. Maybe even do it with a timer on your phone once or twice before you call. That will ensure that you will make it onto the show. I promise you that. And that's it. We've reached the end of this episode of All About Android, and it's been a whole lot of fun. Thanks again to David Ruddock from Android Police to giving us a few minutes of his time to talk Stadia. Always appreciate having him on. And thanks to you, Flo. What you got going on right now? Yes, there's a still of David. I totally thought he was back on. Burke put a still of David on the screen, and I was amazed. I was like, wow, you've just been here the whole time watching. Nice. What you got, Flo?
What have I got? Well, you can go to my website, florenceion.com. I've got a blog up there, plus links to some of my latest published work. I am working on some security reviews and a baby monitor review right now. So that's what I've got going on over here. But in the interim, you can follow me on social media at OhThatFlow is my handle. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you want to go. And I have resolved to do better of really championing the things that I do week to week when it comes my time to sort of plug my things. So I would like to plug my other podcast, the Material Podcast on the Relay FM network. It's the podcast that I do with Andy and Notco. It comes out after All About Android. So if you're looking for a bit of a deeper dive on Google News and what's going on there, you can listen to us at Relay FM.
Awesome. Love Material Podcast. I'm happy that you plug it. So more of that. Thank you, Flo. What about you, Ron?
Not much this week. Just head over to Twitter and Instagram at RonXO, and there you can find all my nonsense. And I do want to thank everyone who has written in response to my discussions around smart home and setting my new house up with smart home stuff. A lot of you have written in a lot of great stuff. I got a bunch of people in my inbox I'm going to write back to, so you will hear from me. But I just want to thank everybody who chimed in and shared their thoughts and things like that. Since we last left, I did have an HVAC guy come in and confirm that my thermostats only are 2-wire thermostats, which makes everything much more complicated. But I'm still figuring it out. But I was able to manually adjust the radiators in each of my kids' rooms, so I've got the temperature the same in both the kids' rooms. One was really, really hot. Now it's not, and so I'm inching there. Nice. But yeah, still on the wonderful adventure of bringing a 1955 built house up to the modern age.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part
yes.
about the IoT things.
I see some unopened boxes behind you.
No, those are open boxes. Those were boxes I was using to flatten out the rug that I got in here. So that's actually
nice.
Okay.
That box behind me is full of. You're talking about that one. That is a box of shelves that I have not put up yet, and then there's a bunch of LP vinyl records in that box. So there you go.
That's some good weight for the carpet.
Yep,
that's a good choice. Yep. Good choice. Yeah, your sound is definitely even better today. So that.
The carpet's too small. I got a 3x5 carpet. I should have gotten a 4x6 so I might return it, but at least it's in here. So the rug.
Yeah. So, indeed.
It's hard. This house stuff is hard.
Yeah, it is. But you'll hit that point where you're like, all right, it's good enough for now, you know?
Yep.
Big thanks to Burke in the studio for being behind the scenes and in front of the scenes a few times on this show. Thank you, Burke. Also, thank you to Victor, who is definitely behind the scenes right now, editing the show and turning it around. Couldn't do it without you. As for me, I don't know, Tech News Weekly, twit.tv/TNW is the show that I do with Micah Sargent. We interview awesome people about the biggest news stories, and sometimes not the biggest news stories, but news stories that we just think are kind of cool. So twit.tv/TNW. It's a interview show that I have a lot of fun with Micah. This is the last time you're going to hear me ask you to take part in our annual survey, twit.tv/survey21. It closes on February 8th, which is just a few days away. So you won't hear me plug this again. But if you haven't got your opinion in on everything that we're doing right or things that we can improve or whatever, we would really appreciate it. I think we're right at the goal. So we're sitting really well on responses, but we can always use more. So twit.tv/survey21. Do not forget, continue to wear a mask, please, and thank you. And that's it for this week. We publish this show every Tuesday evening. twit.tv/AAA is where you can go to find all the links to subscribe in audio, video formats. You can play right there on the page. You can jump out to YouTube. We give you all the options and leave it up to you. twit.tv/AAA. But that is it. We've reached the end of this episode. We'll see you next time on All About Android. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks so much for subscribing to a show here on the TWiT Network. We do appreciate it. Hey, if you want to make sure you are up to date with some of the most important tech news in a given week, you've got to check out my show, Tech News Weekly. My co-host Jason Howell and I talk to the people making and breaking the tech news in a given week, and it's your nice taste of what's going on during the week before our big show on Sundays.